In this video, we're gonna address one of the biggest challenges of the modern world: distractions. I want to show you a few strategies that take zero willpower. Once you follow the strategies I'm about to share, you'll be free of distractions and more motivated to work. Hey friend, and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Dan, and in this channel we explore the strategies and tools to become more effective and productive. So, if you're anything like me and you're always eager to learn more about productivity and performance, please consider subscribing to the channel. And now, let's continue with this video. Distractions are everywhere, from the moment you wake up until you go to sleep. After being busy became the new normal, we've constantly been trying to do more things. But would you call your day productive? Most people can't remember what they did in the last 24 hours. Even though they do 1,000 things, they can't feel satisfied with their work. Maybe you look back at your day and wonder, where has all my time gone? So let me know if this happened to you. You start your day with some work you need to get done. Let's say those tasks aren't very exciting, and you really want to finish them as soon as possible. You try to work on the task, but you can't stop thinking of other things you want to do instead. You compare work with all the other tasks, and you start to feel bored. It seems like you're missing out on so much fun. When will I finish this? Why is this so boring? Let's say that after a while, you get it done. You can now do the thing you wanted. But while you're having fun, you're still thinking about work. You worry that you didn't do a good job. So you start thinking about your next project. And you start to feel bad because you're supposed to be doing so much more. Your mind is at play when you're at work. But when you're at play, you're thinking of work. You never feel 100% present. But what if I told you there's a way to minimize distractions while enjoying life? It's not that you necessarily hate work. We all have different reasons to procrastinate. And whenever you distract yourself, your brain is telling you one of three things. 1, you don't like that work or don't see the value of it. 2, you're not good at it. Or 3, you're not getting the results you want. So before you jump onto distraction tactics, make sure you know why you work and how to work. The good news is you don't need to fight distractions. You just need to teach your brain to shift your focus so that it prefers to work instead. And we can do this with 4 strategies: dopamine detox, resistance, interruption plans, and extreme decisions. Let's get into it. When most people work, they instead think of what they'd like to do when they finished. They feel like they're missing out on a lot of fun. Why does work look so boring? Let's think about it. Think of the last time you stayed in the comfort zone. You wanted to take a break, so you let yourself fall for temptations for a while. Days pass, and the more you do it, the less comfortable you feel. You get to a point where you get no pleasure from those activities. You're sick and tired of doing the same thing, so you get back to work. You try one short session, but it's too hard to get anything done. You decide you stop and try something else, a hobby, for example. But to your surprise, you're even unable to feel joy for the things you once loved doing. So I ask you, is it possible that something fun becomes boring? I know this is very subjective, but temptations have very real effects. Maybe you're proud of having a fun career, spending time with your family, or practicing some sport. But instead, all of that is now boring. You prefer to do Netflix, social media, or video games. You're not bored, you're overstimulated. That's what short-term gratification does. Every time you do these comfort activities, your brain releases a chemical called dopamine. If you do it for long periods of time, the brain keeps working hard to produce this pleasant chemical. Eventually, you exhaust your mental power. And that's why you're unable to feel any emotion or care about anything. It's pretty funny how most of us relate these activities to resting. Leisure should help you relax, but it's doing exactly the opposite. I'd even say it's more energy intensive than work. Humans haven't evolved to live in the modern world. They still live with the brain they used millions of years ago. And the main survival mechanism is energy efficiency. So what does that mean? It means that 100% of the time, we're going to take the path of least resistance. And this path almost never leads to a productive life, or at least a happy one. You're this way and you can't change it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna use it to your advantage. I don't know what your comfort zone is, but the easiest way to get out is to block it. The moment you can no longer dopamine, your brain will think, this no longer works. We now need to find the next fastest source of dopamine. What will that source be? You want to make sure your work is the only option. Dopamine detox is like selling a product with no competition. Customers may look for the cheaper seller, but if you're the only one in the space, they have no choice. I know it's very easy to justify things with mindset theory. Taking action is a whole different story though. It's also what we care about the most. So let's see how to apply this to your life. The first thing you need to do is identify where you're getting your dopamine from. Think of all those habits that bring you short-term gratification and write them down. To fix this, you now have 3 choices. 1, you can remove them completely, which is the most effective. 2, you can remove them for a period of time, which works just as fine. And 3, you can reduce their frequency, which is the least effective. But now I can hear you saying, if I remove this thing from my life, I won't be having fun anymore. But you have to keep in mind 2 things. First, it's temporary. After you finish your big project, you can take a break and go back to comfort. And 2, we're not removing dopamine, we're simply delaying it, which allows you to get more work done. Here's the difference. Your brain must believe that work is the best dopamine hit. You can't have distractions in your environment because then your brain knows that's easier. But if you don't have any, your work becomes the dopamine source and you get rewarded from it. Delaying gratification is easy when there is no short-term gratification around you. So write down those bad habits and commit to remove or reduce them. And the next 3 techniques will help you to do just that. Look, it's not enough to just decide not to fall for temptations. And just because you're working, that doesn't mean you're focused. Even though you may block them physically, you have to get distractions out of your mind. Physically, you can add many barriers and make it harder to distract. But if you really want to procrastinate, you'll really find a way to break them all. At least with internet distractions, you may try site blockers and focus extensions. But because you're trying to protect from yourself, it's impossible to stop it. Do you think you need a system that completely disables temptations? No, you don't. You're assuming your brain is addicted to a particular action, which might be video games, social media, junk food, TV, or whatever. But the only thing it cares about is the fastest way to get dopamine. The moment you slow it down, your brain loses interest and looks for the next fastest path. It's not about blocking distractions because you can't. It's about dissuading yourself from doing it. So maybe you feel like doing a bad habit, but the moment you think of the 10 barriers you need to get over, you don't feel like doing it anymore. And here's how you can do it. Take all the temptations you've written down, and now think of the obstacles you could use to dissuade yourself from distracting yourself with it. The more you can think of, the better it will work. Once you know everything you can do, now it's the time to do it. Every time you want to distract, you should have this shield prepared. And if you want to distract yourself after finishing work, you can go over all these obstacles and do it. What matters is you have to re-enable all these barriers when you stop distracting. For physical obstacles, your choices are limited, but they are just as effective. Try, for example, to get the phone out of your room when working, or leave it in your car. If you want to quit video games, you get rid of your console and phone, at least while working. And I don't mean just turning it off. The temptation doesn't disappear until you place enough obstacles. What if you use your computer for both working and gaming? One thing that you could do is to just get rid of the mouse. You can do most of your tasks without one, but you can barely play anything without it. If you are distracted by the internet, you can use extensions to get rid of that. And if you don't want to get rid of your phone, at least block the apps you don't use. It's not enough to prevent accessing distractions. If you plan to use them from time to time, you need to learn how to stop using them. We like to think like this. I get distracted right now, set a 30-minute timer, and when it goes off, I stop it and get back to work. But how many times did that work for you? Let me know in the comments. For me, not a lot. You can't just choose to stop. There's too much inertia. You need something external to force you to stop. Having a time limit is a good place to start, but it's not enough. Along with that, have an extension to block your pages after you cross the limit. Also, place your alarm far from the room where you're distracting yourself. And if you're always using the same device, assign a simple place at home where you're going to use it for that purpose. For example, you can work in your office or bedroom, but you can only use the phone in the living room. I know it sounds random, but the brain really likes these kinds of rules. My advice here is simple. Do not let yourself fall for temptations if you don't have an interruption plan in place. Otherwise, you're gonna get carried away for the whole day. In case you choose to remove distractions completely, well, then you don't need this advice. That's even better because you don't need any strategies. And that leads me to our last strategy. There's a reason I prefer absolute decisions over moderated habits. Simplicity. You have no idea how confusing it is for your brain to keep bad habits under control. How is it supposed to know when or not to do them? If you feel really distracted, you may change your rules or make exceptions, which only confuses it even more. You know what I mean. The brain isn't very logical and certainly has no time to weigh all the pros and cons. If it gives fast dopamine, it's a yes, and that's the end. It doesn't care about context. And if you put rules to limit bad habits, it doesn't work if it's arbitrary. Oh, you can only do this for 30 minutes a day. Why not more? There must be something real that stops temptations. Sometimes that something is one simple decision. Do I want to keep doing this? The moment you say no, it removes a lot of pressure because you can no longer negotiate or make excuses. You save all that energy to do something better. And that's the power of extreme decisions. It's not good for you to constantly fight against yourself, basically because it drains all your energy. And when you don't have any left, you just go back to the default, which is to find the fastest source of dopamine. So what you're gonna do right now is look at your list and choose the things you want to remove completely. That also means you can now remove them from your environment. By doing this, you'll be saving so much energy that you get the work done super fast. And back to your question, how am I not gonna miss these distractions? Well, we're not quitting forever, only for an undefined period of time. That may mean you don't have distractions until the next vacation or until you finish your current project. So what is the benefit of doing all of this? It solves the problem I explained at the beginning of the video. Because when you organize your life like this, it's much more satisfying when you take time off. You're now being present, which is also the first step to live a happy life. And because you block your distractions, you're more focused at work. That success means you get the rewards faster, which motivates you to keep working. So congratulations, you now know how to become indistractable. Your next challenge is to figure out what you're gonna do with all this new time you've won. Maybe you'll start up reading books. So I have just a video for you. In my next video, I talk about how I read more than 100 books a year. So go ahead and watch that one right now. Until the next time, bye-bye.